I'd like to welcome the meeting. Before we get started officially, I'd like to go ahead and if you please join me in place to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We're going to be closing the polls here. Last call for voters to get in line. Anyone in line at the time that we close the polls, you'll be allowed to vote, but you won't be, no one else will be able to vote after that point. So last call for the polls. Before we get started on the meeting, I'd like to remind everyone that there's a box up here. If you have any questions for the open forum later, please just drop me in there. This will be the last call for that, so when we close the polls, we're going to close that box too. Okay? So we'll take 5 minutes, allow other people to come in, and then we'll get the meeting started. Thank you. Okay, the polls are now closed. I don't see anyone in line, so they're officially closed. Again, one more reminder, if anyone has any questions for the open forum that hasn't passed them in yet, if you would please do that now. Okay, that's going to be closed too. Thank you. Proof of notice of the meeting, GM Evans, could you please provide same?
Yes, on the annual meeting and election of directors, notices were deposited with the U.S. Post Office. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? The annual meeting and election of directors second meeting, meeting notices were deposited with the U.S. Post Office according to bylaw provisions and state law.
Thank you. Determination of quorum, Council Case. Rob? Can you provide quorum notice?
We've got quorum, we don't have the exact number yet. We'll give it once we do the count.
Okay, quorum is established and we'll report what the quorum total is as soon as he is able to provide it. Having received quorum notice, the meeting is now called to order. GM Evans, could you please advise if there's any past minutes that have to be approved?
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to explain to the audience real quick. I don't know if we've done it this way before, but this is a meeting of you guys. It's a meeting of the members, not of the board. So what that means is each year, you guys approve the meeting minutes. And so I'm going to ask for someone to make a motion, and then I'm going to ask for someone to make a second, and then I'll ask for all in favor, and you can just say aye. So with that said, can I have a motion to approve last year's meeting minutes? Thank you, Joanne. Joanne was second. Jerry? Thank you, Jerry. All in favor, say aye.
Okay, thank you. Minutes are so approved. Minutes are so approved. Appointment of volunteer election inspectors.
Yeah, Joe, the following volunteers were recruited for the purpose of assisting with the annual meeting election of directors. Efforts were made towards recruiting these 24 volunteers using a diverse range of viewpoints. Their duties include processing the intake of ballots and counting them. And there's 24 people that I would like to tell you. Kathy Chaplin, Bob Adams, Carol Adams, Ernie Giordano, Pat Shanahan, Michelle Muncie, Melanie Palmer, Annette Dugay, Don Swindell, Debbie Baggs, Jeanette Bazin, Lori Bernard, Rosemary Nardi, Marlene Poirier, Eric Nicolai, Terry Siciliano, Gail Taub, Anita Zanfardino, Brenda Zelt, Dave Zelt, and Valerie Zetleski.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll give them another 30 days. It's getting pretty good with the names. But listen, I think on behalf of the board, we'd like to express our appreciation to those wonderful volunteers who came out and really did a yeoman's job on this. In particular, Kathy Chaplin has been doing this for many years, and she had advised us that this will be her last year in performing in the role of being kind of like the administrator of all of the volunteer work for the election. Kathy's done a great job, and if you could please, along with the others, again, one more round of applause for him, because that's what makes the place job. Okay, just provide it with quorum. Quorum's established at 889. So another good turnout. Appreciate it. Okay, just President's report is the next item of business on the agenda, and I'm going to be brief again. Basically, I'd like to acknowledge the service of two directors who are my board colleagues, one of which we know will not be on the board next year, and the other, Frank Hennigan. Jason Ward has provided some pretty good service over the past years, seemed to focus a lot on security, and we thank him for his service. I don't see him in the crowd tonight. Jason, you here? Okay, well, in any event, thank you, Jason, for what you've done. Frank, thank you, my friend. Let's hope you're around, but let's see if you're, if not, you've done a great job, and it's appreciated by the board. Thank you. Thank you. If you could please allow me, thank you. What we're going to do is we'll have a little bit of the agenda until we get to the point where we'll have an open forum after the general manager's report. And after that open forum, we may have a brief recess, depending on how long the open forum goes, until such time that the votes are counted. And then we'll regroup here. We'll try and, if people want to go across the street and have a little bit of bite to eat, we'll try and get notice over there when we think that we'll have the count ready. I'll give you a couple minutes notice so you can get back here to hear the count if you'd like to. Having said that, as I continue with my report, I'd just like to point out a few items that are going to be immediate challenges and or opportunities for the new board, in no particular order of priority. First on the list I have is options on the clubhouse expansion and the path forward for getting resolution on the clubhouse. Implementation of the aeration systems on a phased-in basis, maintaining the current sound financial structure and ensuring its sustainability into the foreseeable future. A few key elements with respect to the financial structure. Opportunities to address emergency storm recovery on a non-insured common area risk basis. Maintaining a no base assessment increase in the foreseeable future, projected probably 2026 and maybe even further. The path is set and will require continued discipline and prudent fiscal decision-making to keep it on track. Assessing and addressing inflation impact on operating budget and the reserves. We had talked a few months ago where inflation seemed to be raising its terrible head again. That seems to have subsided a little bit in the last 4 or 5 months, but that is one that could eat our lunch if we don't appropriately take measures now to forestall it in the future. They were talking as much as 4.5% to 5% on building materials and things that are important in our reserve budget, like the roads and like concrete. If those things start escalating at a higher rate, it's better to take action now and forestall us having to write a check in the future. We can do it in a progressive manner on incremental steps now, just making sure that we understand it and plan for it. Again, it appears that that risk is lesser than what it was 4 or 5 months ago. We're going to be doing the reserve study here next month. Well, it's actually this month in a couple of weeks. And basically, that's going to help us to understand what the reserve people are filling now, based on their earlier projections a few months ago and in comparison to those. Let's hope it's pacified a bit. It seems to be from everything that we can see in the macro economy. Let's hope that that is truly the case and we're able to continue along this path. Next priority item will be the P3 turnover of common areas from Taylor Morrison. And what I'm talking about there is that we, in phase 3, we officially have it turned over all of the roads. The dog park, the lakes, none of the lakes in phase 3 have been officially turned over to us yet. We'll go through an inspection and have those come in compliance, and we'll fight with Taylor Morrison until they become compliant. The landscape, make sure it's satisfactory and adequate for us. I keep on hearing about issues with trees dying up there and how it's not done properly. The landscape has been done properly, so we'll have to take Taylor Morrison on in that. A little bit later, we'll do questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, is that better? Okay, yell at me louder. All right. Okay. And then gate 3, of course, and Jerry had provided an update of gate 3, which appears like we could be ready to roll on that as early as several weeks from now. The second part of that, getting the road back from City Council and from their Cape. Marilyn, who is not here tonight, is at actually the council meeting in which that is on the consent agenda. I verified it. It is on the consent agenda for tonight. And what they'll do is they'll set a public hearing date for that for March 18th. And the new board will be representing the association at that council meeting. The anticipated price that we're going to pay for that is no dollars. We're going to have to pay for the survey work that was done to repartition and properly describe that parcel that's coming back to us. Once we have that, we have about maybe a couple of weeks after that of making the center median, taking it down 18 inches from the 8 feet, and we'll have the 2 entrance lanes as we desire to have there. So gate 3 is in the foreseeable future, finally. And I guess the other major issue that we're going after with Taylor Morrison is really optimization of the claims against Taylor Morrison. And again, if you recall, we actually have 2 groups of claims, one that are construction and engineering related. That's the 558 notice claims. And the other, which are generally described as common claims against them, which includes an accounting claim for when they used our reserves to offset their deficit, order of magnitude $551,000 plus another 37, so almost $600,000 there. And then a fiduciary claim on that's general, but in particular the big item there was the erosion issue on the lakes. And we have some erosion in which, if you look at where the littorals are planted in our lakes, they're on a shelf. That shelf is to be described, and by code, it can't exceed a certain depth from safety standpoint reasons. And in areas where that shelf exceeds that depth, it needs to be retrofit. And because Taylor Morrison wasn't managing that properly and providing the right funds to do that all the way up until transition, there's a fiduciary management claim against them on that. And again, we're looking at doing that on a success-oriented basis with the legal firm that we would have doing it, and that's about all I can say on that right now with respect to the legal. Okay. And I think something that is a challenge for the new board is being able to come up with a sound process to raise projects from various areas and give them due diligence and an assessment such that they can be presented to the community and those priorities are then pursued. And it's just a matter of getting that on the table and having a process developed for it. We have a lot of prototypes to do it. And I think that is something that we've been struggling with as to how those projects get put forth with the right amount of evaluation and done in the proper form. And I think to the extent that that process can be formalized and a protocol developed for it will benefit the association. And then last but not least will be the communication improvement objective. And again, the communications committee has done a phenomenal job in the last year, I think, in being able to do a lot of the communications, cleaning it up and being more timely with it. I know that Doug Willett is to be given a lot of credit for the benefits he has us all reaping from his efforts and his committee's efforts. And I know he has a large agenda that he wants to continue on. And he has the full support of this board and hopefully future boards in doing it, because I think it's a fantastic thing that they're looking to accomplish, and thank you. Okay, although I'm talking about these as opportunities and challenges, none of them are really pie in the sky type of things. They're all really attainable. A lot of the groundwork on many of them is already completed. And with the community support and a board disciplined and committed to focus, perform, and be accountable in a manner that is consistent with what is in the best interest of the community, I'm confident we'll be able to achieve all of these, or the new board will be able to achieve all of these. Lastly, I think one of the major tasks that's already well underway is making sure that our new general manager is able to hit the ground running. And to the extent that we're able to make that process go more smoothly and more effectively, that's going to be another thing that we continue to do over the next several months. I think that most in this audience who have had any exposure, and most of the residents have had exposure to our new general manager, and I'm talking to him like he's not here on the stage with me, but basically I think that he's done a great job in coming on board and really starting to get his hands around things pretty darn quickly, and he's a very fast read. It's funny how experience and talent work in your benefit. And Jerry, thank you for coming up to speed so quickly. And I'll be turning the floor over to Jerry here in just a couple minutes. And he'll go ahead and pick up on both his report and then the monitoring and moderating of the actual open forum that we'll do immediately following that. I guess while I'm up here, just in closing, I'd like to thank you all for the support that I've personally received. And I consider it an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to have served and hopefully contributed to the universal objective we all share in making our community the best it can be. I'm convinced that no matter the outcome of tonight's election, I believe the community will be well served, as all of the candidates have demonstrated sincere interest in advancing our community. My personal gratitude to each of them and to all my board colleagues who are not candidates, but nevertheless board colleagues the same in this election cycle, and for their endless commitment and selfless commitment and support. I thank you guys all. Appreciate it. Thanks. Jerry, turn it over to you.
So hello again. My report's a little bit different this year than it will be in future years. I've been here for a few weeks, so I thought the way I would present tonight is kind of give you guys an idea of what I've done for the last 3 weeks and kind of where I'm going right now. Obviously, first things first, initial evaluation of staff, strengths, weaknesses, job responsibilities. I'm in the process right now of recruiting an operations manager, which will basically kind of like an assistant, but I have the ability, having been there for a few weeks before I hire this person, to see the different projects, to see what's happening, and again, strengths and weaknesses of current staff, to be able to know what type of talent I need to recruit in that position. And I've got a really good beat on a couple, and we still have quite a few more candidates to look at. I'm hoping to have that wrapped up, a decision made within a week and a half to 2 weeks, and then someone onboarded in hopefully 4 weeks. Also, obviously, one of the first things to order was reviewing the governing documents, which if anyone has ever seen all of the governing documents for the community, the breadth is unbelievable. Not only the current documents, but older documents before the amendments. And the reason it's important for me to go back and see original documents is I can see the thought processes from inception and going forward as to what you're trying to accomplish. And then initial tours of the community. Beautiful, beautiful community, but obviously it needs to be managed, and I think, I've told the board this a couple of times, in my opinion, not only with landscaping, but any contractor, they're only as good as you manage them. And hiring my operations manager will really help us out in that regard, or will give us the time to manage the landscapers in particular a little bit better and a little bit closer. I've already attended one board meeting and a couple of committee meetings. I sat with the communications committee, and I know Joe mentioned that a while ago. One of my platforms, if you will, one of the things I really think I can bring to the community is a little bit more communication. And you guys have probably seen some of the emails going out already, and that it's probably a good idea of the normal style that I'll have. Some are more bigger and elaborate, and some are just things that you guys need to know, even if they're small items. So the other thing, met with the ARC chairperson. Excuse me.
Either you need to be louder or they need to be louder.
Louder. Better? All right. ARC. So really the one thing I want to emphasize to you guys that may not have been consistent for the past several years is that the expectation is going to be apply for improvements. And it's in your governing documents. It's always been required. It's just I think there's been phases where that's been required more often and then sometimes less often. But I will tell you that we will be requiring those, and it is if you make any improvement to outside of your home that can be seen from the public. So the obvious exceptions would be if you're replacing something of like material. The best example is your roof, or your paint color is probably even better. If you were to paint your house the exact same color, you do not need to get an approval. That's kind of tough because a lot of times people like Sherwin-Williams or wherever they get the paint from, those older colors are not available anymore. But the other thing I wanted to let you know is about removing things, especially landscaping. Not going to say it's not going to be approved, but the ARC committee does need to look at that to determine if it's appropriate in your area. And again, that's modifying or is making an improvement to the outside of your house. So the other thing I've been doing is trying to make contact with all of the committees, and I sent an email to all of them. One of the things we're going to improve a little bit on, it was kind of in conjunction with the annual calendar of board meetings. So not only did I schedule the board meetings for the rest of the year and sent that out privately to the chair people, I sent them a spreadsheet of 3 columns, and they have dates for each meeting that they're required to turn in minutes, dates for each meeting that they're required to turn in reports. And these reports are the ones that at the meeting they're going to report on. And if they don't go to the meeting, then I or someone else on their committee can report for them. And then you guys will be able to see those things on the website, because when they come to me, they're also being copied to our communications committee. So by the time we have the meeting, if you can't make that meeting, or really, I think the best opportunity for them to be out there is that you might see a report posted to the website that's about to be at the board meeting, and if you have something to comment on or question on it, that will alert you to then go to the board meeting, you can ask about it. But if you just wanted to peruse it, it'll be on the website. Have been working, as Joe mentioned, really close with Taylor Morrison, CenturyLink, Honk Construction, LCE or LEC on the Pine Island Gate. We're close, and I will have an update to send out. I planned it for Wednesday. I've drafted it, but I still need a little bit more information. But we are going to go ahead and move forward. There's 2 parts of the construction process. One is outside the gate and one is inside the gate to make that merge lane a little bit longer. We can go ahead and do, because the only thing we're waiting on the outside is what Joe alluded to and Marilyn's at tonight, is the city approval. But on the inside, we're going to go ahead and move forward with that lane in the hopes it might save us a few days on the back end. Every day counts. But anyway, I will be sending out an update this week, Wednesday, Thursday on the outside. Also, we'll be working on a collections policy, and I wanted to mention this. Our collections, and they've been pretty good historically, but they're lagging a little bit now, and it could be because of the transition of GM. But we will be fine-tuning the collection policy, and I'll be communicating in emails about that. So keep in mind there will be certain enforcement procedures that you've seen before. It will be nothing new, but again, they will be enforced probably a little bit more consistently. Also want to review amenity policies, amenity rules. I know we have an amenity committee, and I'd like to get with them and just analyze them and see if I can bring anything to the table there. And they may be fine, but if we have a chance for improvement, we're going to take that as well. Also meeting this week with our security company, Global Security, and we'll be reviewing the post orders with those guys and all of their policies and procedures and their practices. And again, probably other than landscapers, that's another opportunity to manage those guys a little bit closer and get, so you guys get a little more bang for your buck for what we're paying them. I've also met with the insurance broker for the community. Our insurance policies expired about 3 to 2 weeks ago, and some of that was lined up before I got here, but we got those renewed, and so everything is in order. We've also met with Rob, our association's attorney, reviewed and discussed a couple of ongoing issues that also involve the insurance company from before my hire here. Anyway, so I think that's really about it. I just wanted to kind of give you in 3 weeks what I've been working on, and I can tell you one thing. My perception after 3 or 4 weeks is you guys have the most beautiful community in Southwest Florida, and I hope that I can make a positive influence on bringing everybody together. I know there's a little bit of decisiveness, so thank you. Thank you again, and I think Joe has a couple of pieces of business on the agenda before we go to open forum, and even in the next few minutes, or even as we're going through open forum, the back page of your packet has a blank open forum sheet. If you have a question, you can come up here and put it in a bucket, and I'm going to read the question and try to give you an answer before I leave tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Not bad for 30 days, huh? The next item of business is unfinished business, and I don't recall we have any, Jerry, I don't think there's any open items there. I guess, Jerry, you're going back and just check the blocks. Okay, new business will be election of directors. As I said, that is certainly underway right now, and we'll be taking a recess after the open forum, unless the open forum continues. But basically, we'll try and give you a shout and let you know when we're getting close on the count, if you want to come back and hear the final count. Okay, open forum, Chair.
Okay, the first one is pretty easy, and the person did not realize I was going to give an update. It's wanting an update on the pylon and gate, and I know, especially the guys that live in Phase 3, obviously, are really excited about that. So again, I would think Wednesday or Thursday at the latest, I should have that out there. The next one, and that was from Mr. Schreiber. Thank you. Next one is from Bill Browning. Bill? Is Bill here? Oh, thank you, Bill. Sorry. Bill says, what's happening with the shades over the kids' swing set? So I'm probably going to let one of our board members, either Al or Joe, help me out on that, because while I know that is a concern, shade over the playground, I don't know that it's ever been an agenda item or an official piece of business. I do know that there are quite a few people. I've already heard a couple of folks come to they met with me and expressed a concern over the heat on the playground equipment. You want to mention?
Yeah, as was originally planned, the shade was going to be done in conjunction with and contemporaneous with the expansion. It looks like the expansion certainly will be delayed until we get our act together and figure out the options on it, how to proceed. I personally, again, I'm talking for myself, not as a board member, for the board, but I would see us accelerating something in there to be able to provide some level of shade on an expedited basis, as opposed to trying to continue to do it in parallel with the expansion. But that'll be up to the new board to decide how that's done. If I had my druthers, I'd accelerate something there. So.
Thanks, Joe. The next question is from Terry, and I'm going to really try this. S-Z-K-L-A-R-S-K-I. Is Terry here? Can't you pronounce your last name? Sklarski. Thank you, sir. The question is it possible to mail board ballots and associated information at least a week earlier? My information was sent to Michigan, and I still have not received my mailing. So what you should do is confirm, number one, I will answer your question, but confirm with the association office that we do have your correct mailing address. Okay, great. So it's hard, you know, we have the correct mailing address, he said. It's hard to sometimes control the U.S. Post Office, but that's a great question and one I've been asked before. And unfortunately, we are mandated by state statute on how early we can mail the first notice out. And then we have, it's 50 days prior to the meeting date. That's the earliest we can mail it. And then on the other side, for the second notice, we have to have the second notice out no later than 14 days, or that would be almost impossible. So the issue is here, we've got a small window. And the first thing is everybody realizes if we can only go 50 days out, it takes, say a week, 4 or 5 days for everybody to get that first. So you're already missing almost a week there. And then we have to give people time to decide whether they're going to run for the board or not. And then, so you're looking at a couple more weeks probably. So then we're looking at about 3 weeks. And then once that information comes back, the office and our volunteers needs time to collate everything, put it together, because we don't have all that information until we know who's running for the board. Some of it we actually did a little bit early. And then it goes out, and then by that time you get it another week later, you're already looking at 2 weeks before the meeting. So it is a very short window. We're not happy with it either. I would give anything if that 50 days was 60 days. I can't imagine it was arbitrary, but I don't know what caused lawmakers to think 50 days was appropriate. But, and our choice is we do have some latitude. We could give a little bit more time on the front side, meaning give people a little bit more time to decide whether they want to run for the board, or we could give that less time, which would give more time on the flip side. But I will say, the last thing I'll say about that is we were scheduled to send those mailings out on Friday the 15th. I did a chronological list of tasks, about 20 of them related to the meeting, and Friday the 15th was a scheduled date. We actually got them out Tuesday, I think 12th, Tuesday the 12th. So it's our intention to run as fast as we can and get those out as quick as we can. But again, we're limited by state statute on that. So the point made, very valid, was the Canadians that we have in the community, and theirs takes even longer, and I agree with you. We had people in Western, almost Eastern Europe, that received them almost a week after everybody else here did, but Canadians, I don't think have received them today. And whether that's an issue with the Canadian Postal Service, I don't know. There was a request to have us express mail them or FedEx them. I probably made my first tough decision, and we were looking at anywhere between $35 and $65 a mailing. So we were, with the amount of people we had, we were looking at about $3,000 or $4,000. It was not budgeted, so I made the decision, and it's your money. It's all of your money. And I decided that it just wasn't something that I could do, is to spend your money on making those select few get that. But what I think one of the resolutions was was that someone local here, a friend, fortunately, a lot of these people know each other in Canada, and so one person I know, they all chipped in with the FedEx, and they paid like $5, and we put them all in one FedEx envelope to get them out, and then they did something on a return. I mean, that's a great resolution, but unfortunately, not probably everybody lives in a small community or has friends that would do that also. But yeah, I mean, that's one reason I would like the 60 days instead of 50. And I'll consider, I will put some thought to that and talk to other folks and see how they handle it and see if we can find another resolution on our end. Thank you. The next open forum question is Mitchell. Amy, thank you. When will we be implementing electronic voting as an option for those in the community who would like to vote? I think that is an excellent question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I think that anybody who has talked to me knows I'm a proponent of electronic voting. So, change takes some time, though. I will tell you. I think the board is trying to make a decision. For even though we have 25 lots along those lines, we have 3,000 people that live in the community. It's sometimes tough to make a decision because we're not just thinking how we feel ourselves. We're thinking about the masses. So I understand it being a tough decision. And I've always said to this has been coming up for years in my industry. And I've always said to everybody, I'll say here, it's not a matter of if we're going to do it, it's when we're going to do it. And in my opinion, obviously I started at a pretty rough time. 3 weeks ago, I probably had 50 emails, pretty colorful emails. So I understand. I understand the issues. I truly do. And I believe, from some of those emails, I don't think that anything is happening that some of the emails say is happening. Nevertheless, perception means a lot, right? And if I can just shave one bit of perception off, it helps me in my job. And I think electronic voting is a good thing. And I do plan on talking to a few companies in the next few months and then bringing that information to the board and reassessing with the board for next year. So, great question. Thank you. Is there anybody else? There is? Oh, I was wondering. That didn't look like Amy. Brandon, thank you. Are there things in place to prevent financial wrongdoing in our community, as was recently discovered at a local community association? Well, I'm going to let Frank answer that, but I can tell you without knowing everything these guys have as far as the safety nets of accounts payable and check signing and that whole process, I can tell you that one of the most important things any community can do is have an independent third-party auditor audit your books, right? And we obviously have insurances, because the auditor's not here every day, but if something was found, I think we're protected through insurance and then ultimately through our audit. But as far as a normal routine basis on monthly accounts payable and protection of our investments, I'll let Frank mention that.
One of the key things in finance is separations of duty. So when we get bills in now and cash, no one on the board here or no one actually in Sandoval touches the cash. It immediately goes up to Sarasota where the accountants are. So when we get a bill in here, I have to sign off on it. It was Sean, now it would be Jerry. Jerry has to initial it, and then it goes up to the accountant, and he has to initial it. So this is the separation of duties. When we are interviewing any kinds of bids, we get 3 bids, and we have a few people there when the bids come in to make sure there's no collusion on bids. So that prevents that from happening. That there's no favoritism. The fear that I always had, and that's why, especially when bids come in, if you only have one person seeing a bid, he could actually talk to someone ahead of time and tell them, the two first bids would say 125K. If you come in at 100K, me and you can, take $12.50 each. And there's no way a financial person can catch that because, they're doing it behind, this is him telling the other person. That's why you have to open these bids in front of everyone, and they all have to be opened together. So I made a big point of that. I made a big point to Sean on that. I said, Sean, you're not opening these bids on just by yourself. There's going to be, myself in the room with you, and now there's a Don Swindell who's on the finance team. I have him in there as well. So you want to have, like I said, as many eyes on the finances as you can. But bottom line is, there's no cash going. I don't touch any cash. No one here touches any cash. All we do is we get invoices in. When the invoices come in, we sign them. They go up to Sarasota. Sarasota cuts the check. Okay, and there is credit cards. Credit cards, Gary, who is a lifestyle director, he has permission to put money on credit cards. Again, I see all the details. I ask him what he's paying for, what he's purchasing. When he gets under a budget, we have a $50,000 budget on lifestyle. He knows to stay within it. He has the freedom to spend money as long as, I keep a close eye on it to make sure he's not going far over it. But he has permission to spend the money. And but again, at the end of each month, he has every receipt stapled to it. So I see every item that that was purchased and what the reason for it was. I also have I just took over a credit card, and that's for, that's for anything large that we might want to buy. There was sometimes we found that the best thing, like say for equipment in the gym, the best buy was to get it online. And you couldn't get it online, with a check. You had it, as anyone knows, when you're purchasing stuff online, you have to use a credit card. So we have a credit card now that goes up to $25,000. I just got it recently. We only used it once, and it was only for a very minimal amount of money. I think $400. I think it was actually for the ballot box. So that's the only thing we use it for. So, but we do have it there just in case there are items that we can get our best bang for our buck by buying something online. And to be able to buy it online, you want to have at least the flexibility of going up to $25,000, but it hasn't been used yet.
Just two more points that we instilled some internal procedures at the time of transition. Actually, during transition, we clamped Taylor Morrison on reserves. There was a process that Bonita Bay put in place called a bar, and that's just a request to use reserve funding, and it had to be approved by the board. Taylor Morrison was trying to play a little bit of a game with our reserves. Matter of fact, they were playing a game with our reserves, trying to run a community on reserves, rather than write checks, and they got clamped down on that. And we put in place at that time, we instituted what is called the bar system, in which not one penny comes out of reserves unless the board approves it. And there's a formal process to do that, and it's based on a presentation and evaluation by the general manager making a recommendation to the board to be able to pull money out. We have the CenturyLink sequestered, that CenturyLink surplus is sequestered, and it's managed in a similar fashion. So those are two procedures that keep those funds isolated and a determined process for allowing any to be released out of either account.
So the next two questions from Ron Spooner. How much have we spent on expansion to date? And then how much have we spent from CenturyLink Fund in total to date? And for these questions, I'm going to ask Frank to help us out again.
On the expansion, I think it was about 130, 140. Okay, $145,000. We had to get the blueprint. We had to get, dealing with the, basic engineering. So that rendering that we showed and all. So Getting that done, it cost about $145,000 that we spent on the expansion to this point. You know, no shovels been put in the ground, no engineers have been bought, so it's strictly just basically getting the renderings and the blueprints all put in place. The CenturyLink, that's really easy to look at each quarter, because it's the way it gets funded. It's right now it's 38.86 a month from each house. So it would be 38.86, and if you did it for a year times 12 times 1,425 homes, it comes out to about $664,000 a year. We're just about built out, so you can use the 1,425 as the amount of homes. Prior to this, you know, you had to do a slight running average, because we started the year at 1,361. We sold 55 homes during the year. But from now on, if you look in there, it should be we're depositing $664,000, and it's sitting in there. The only thing that we ever did to the CenturyLink, when we did in Vera, we took out $95,000. We didn't take it out of what was put in. We just reduced what we were funding. By that I mean we were saving $44.58, and then we reduced it down to the $38.86, and that was because we took $5 off per house, which came up to the $95,000 that we were using to pay for the Vera that we pay each year. So we just reduced the amount of contribution to the surplus, but we didn't go in and take anything out of the surplus. So this year we're going to, in the last board meeting, because of the lakes, and with talking about taking out, $500,000 for the lakes, and that would be coming out of, the surplus. But to this point in time, nothing was actually taken out of the actual account, and it's, like I said, it's pretty, it's very easy. You can see from month to month to track it, because it's 38.86, and it should be times 1425, and you don't have to do it times 12. You can do it by month, and you can see how much is going in by month. So again, there's the only major thing that was taken out was basically the Envira.
And with respect to Envira, the $225 roughly $1,000 that was a capital expenditure came out of reserves. The operating cost is what Frank was talking to, which is $5.72 a month. That's the differential between the 38.86 and the 44.58. That is on an ongoing basis, being paid as if it were. If you put in a surplus, you'd be pulling right out of it. So what we did is just reallocated that over to pay for Envira. And that's why the surplus is reduced. And then the projects that we approved in the February 14th budget to be taken out of the CenturyLink surplus, they're the initial capital expenditures put those projects in place. Once those projects are in place, they become a reserve item, so maintenance and replacement for them comes out of the reserve budget. But the initial capital expenditure will be handled through that. And it looks like the lakes are going to be less than the $500,000 that we allowed to be the cap on that. They're probably going to run, and don't hold me to this, but it looks like we're probably going to get them all done for about $350,000. So we were able to do that by using 2 suppliers and doing some real strategic planning on the electrical placement, so that we can hit some home runs with electrical that can service several lakes. So we optimized the use of the electrical runs, and we optimized then the location of the various compressors that provide the air and oxidation capability to the lakes by using common equipment. So that'll be on a phased-in project being spent over the next few years. We also, in that February meeting, identified 4 or 5 other projects, and we asked our general manager to evaluate and try to put them on a fast track for us, and they'll be done in a similar fashion anticipated that their expenditures will come out of the CenturyLink. Again, these are the types of projects that are probably, again, order of magnitude $20,000 to $50,000, that kind of thing. But that's another couple $100,000 that we'll probably be taking out of there, or have been planned to take out. The new board will make the final decision on that. So, anyhow.
Thanks, Joe. The next two questions are extremely similar and probably can be answered in the same, with the same answer. The first one is, they're both on CenturyLink. Does CenturyLink have the ability to cancel the contract if they merge or run into other financial difficulties? And then the second part of that question is, do we have the ability to cancel if technology changes? And the second question, I think this is relevant, with the major changes in cable TV as well as Comcast financials, what is the plan if they cancel the contract we have? I'm sorry, the first one was Doug Willett, and the second one was Gary Cullen. Gary.
On CenturyLink, they can't cancel the contract. They can if they're going to bankruptcy or something, or to sell the company, and somebody, even their successors are bound by that contract. So, you know, and from a pragmatic standpoint, from a practical standpoint, they have no better contract that they've given to any other customer in the whole United States from CenturyLink. They've told us that many times. We've done our own evaluations on that. Basically, I can't prove that it's the best in the United States, but I can prove we have a pretty good contract compared to others. But basically, there's a non-cancellation provision. There's breach of contract terms in it. If there's a technology upgrade, they're obligated to provide us at a best market price comparison to that technology upgrade as an increment to whatever we have. The contract is controlled in that there's two portions to the internet portion, and then there is the TV portion. They only have the ability to increase the TV portion for new content that they might purchase in that. Now, if anyone's been following the macro news on CenturyLink, they were acquired by 3L, I think. And basically, 3L has told CenturyLink, and what they've communicated to us is that they'll still be providing their services to us in the same form, and they're committed to do that in Florida. They have a lot of obligations within Florida, and they're probably concerned about some statutory requirements in Florida. I don't know all the intricacies of that, I'm not an attorney, but basically that they're in line with that. And so I don't think there's a fear there right now, and you know, we'll hold them to their feet to the fire if they try to do anything with it. So.
Are there any more questions before we take a recess? Okay, so Kathy just informed me it's just almost 7 o'clock. She believes that 8 o'clock is the time that they will be done and so we got an hour. And I think everybody probably knows there's a restaurant over there. You can go get a drink, whatever. But about an hour, okay? Thank you, guys.
Hello. We're going to call the meeting back to order briefly to announce the results of the election. Before I do that, first I want to again thank Kathy and all the volunteers who did the check-in and the count. That went very smoothly, and thank you very much. Also, just congratulations to the community as a whole. 889 parcels out of the total community participated, and that's an excellent rate of participation for any association. Also, congratulations to all the candidates. There were 6 candidates up for 3 seats, and that's also good participation for an association. The election was for 3 seats for 2-year terms, so the following 3 individuals, which are the highest vote getters in no particular order, will be seated to the board at the conclusion of this meeting for their 2-year terms. And I apologize if I've mispronounced the names, but D. Philippis, Spooner, and Tough. Thank you very much. Tough.